The dog at your feet right now might be perfectly settled, easy company, not asking for anything, and still not be okay. If you're anything like me, you take a quiet dog as a sign that things are fine. After all, it's what we were taught to strive for, and it's often the thing that we're most proud of, a cool, calm, and collected dog. My guest this week has spent 25 years working out what fine actually looks like from the dog side. Jo Middleton is the principal of the International School of Canine Psychology and Behaviour. She runs Canine Principles, where more than 20,000 students have enrolled, and she runs the International Institute for Canine Ethics, an assessing organisation for the ABTC, which is the closest thing the UK has to a regulator for dog professionals. She's watched the industry change over 25 years, from choke chains being standard in training classes she went to as a child, to a generation of professionals now learning to notice and read what dogs are really telling them. She's also the person who noticed something wasn't right with her own dog, even when two vets couldn't, because she knew what her dog's normal looked like and they didn't. And that's really the thread of this whole conversation. The people who live with dogs day in and day out see things that nobody else can. And it's that noticing that matters more than we've been led to believe. If you've got a dog at home, I think you'll get a lot out of this episode. This is Just a Dog Podcast, and I'm your host, Nadine. Let's begin. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I would love to get to know you as a person. Where did you grow up? What was life like? And then take me through the journey that led you to here.
So my dad was in the army. He was away a lot when I was growing up. And my mum is from Belgium originally and grew up with Belgian Malinois. So they were around me from a very early age because they were my mum's life and as a result my life as well. And we also had an old English sheepdog and a mix Heinz 57, best bits of everything, who was called Charlie. We've got a Charlie now as well. And dogs were everything really from a very early age. But it was a time where aversive methods were the norm, and going to training and ringcraft, obedience and ringcraft classes as a child. All the dogs had choke chains on, and it was just a time that didn't feel as if the emotional needs of a dog were taken into account at all. And it didn't feel right, didn't sit right with me.
Up until what point? Where did you have like a light bulb go off where you were just like, oh, this is not okay? Was there a particular dog or a person that helped you see the light?
So I think it was when I was sat in a field. We were showing Belgian Shepherd dogs, and I'd been given these dogs to show by a breeder that had been dragged out of the kennel that day and had been brought to the show. They'd been taken out of the van, and there was a bitch who was just really flighty and petrified of the whole show environment. So I walked away from the showground with her. It was set in some fields in Wales, and we went and just sat on the ground in a field. And I didn't try and talk to her, didn't interact with her at all. And I just let her take into account what was going on and process until such time that she felt able to come over to me on the other end of the lead. And then it was on her terms rather than me trying to handle her. And I can't remember what age I was, but I was definitely very young, maybe 12, 13, not even before then. But it was definitely a moment where I thought, she feels the overwhelm that I feel in these environments. And it was just a really, I don't know, really memorable moment to have that bonding with her in that field, and then be able to gradually expose her more to the showground than just launch her straight in and expect her just to cope because she's a dog and that's what she should do.
What was the showground for?
So it's obedience and ringcraft. So obedience and showing, and it was the Belgian
I don't know what ringcraft is. I'm so sorry.
It's basically what you see at crufts where they're going round a ring and they're judged on appearance. So are they standing as they should stand? Are they moving as they should move? It's very much a beauty pageant style approach to dog showing, and not one that I now, as an adult and having been involved in the rescue world for many years, personally agree with. But yes, it was a Ringcraft and Obedience, and it was a Belgian Shepherd Dog Association breed show.
When was the first time that you had your own dog, and what was that experience like? How was it different from having a family dog to then having your own?
It was very different because the dogs that we had at home, we had the Belgian Shepherd dog, the Old English Sheepdogs, Charlie, the Heinz 57. Charlie was kind of inherited, and he was like the naughty dog that would escape and go and try and find all the neighborhood bitches that were in season. And growing up, I always thought that that was because he was a mongrel and he wasn't a pedigree dog like the others. Whereas when I left home, I moved to a city and found that there were lots of dogs that were on the streets. There were dogs that were the back door was opened in the morning and they were let out for the day and to wander. There were dogs living in cars. And I started to have my eyes open to the rescue need in the UK, but more so the need for things to be addressed at a higher level than the individuals working in rescue, trying to cope with the amount of dogs that were having to be put to sleep after 7 days were able to cope with. So going from a showing background, if you like, where I'd already started to think about dogs being the free thinking, sentient beings that they are, to then seeing the other side where you've got these dogs that were preened and ready to go into the show ring on one front, and then seeing these dogs that were just discarded and euthanized after 7 days because there was no place for them to go, was a real eye opener, and part of what fueled my passion to do what I do today.
When did you join the ISCP? And then later on, what was the catalyst for you to create Canine Principles?
COVID, really, and one of my own dogs having to be put to sleep. I was a trustee for a charity, a rescue at the time, um, and COVID hit, and trying to juggle everything was really, really hard. And the charity is an incredible, incredible charity that I worked with. I mean, I've worked with quite a few rescues, but a few specifically over the years. And this one I worked with, I think, since 2000 and maybe 12. And and done sort of all the roles, if you like, from walking the kennel dogs to kennel dog assessment to microchipping to post homing support, just everything. Transport runs in the middle of the night, meeting men who are driving lorries in the middle of a lorry park with a load of dogs in. It's all very strange when you say it out loud, but quite normal to someone who works in rescue. But there just came a point where the stress of running the businesses and then the stress of having my lovely Ticey long-haired Rossi boy had to be put to sleep. And I don't feel that that was done how it should have been done. I didn't realize that home euthanasia was a thing at that point, and it was COVID. So I had to hand him over in the car park. And then the vet rang and told me afterwards to say, it's all done. We had to muzzle him. And I was just like, what?
Gosh, no.
And that just completely broke my heart. He was always my rock. I know we were talking before we came on about your dad passing away. That was my rock through my dad passing away and his palliative care journey. That Ticey was my boy. So that was really tough. And then a few weeks maybe after Ticey had gone, I went to pick a foster dog up. He had been muzzled when he was found, and we suspected he'd come off a traveller site. And when I found that out, I thought that it was suspicious, I think is probably the right word, because if I don't think he would have been muzzled unless there was a risk of him biting a human in that environment that he'd come from. So that was a little bit suspicious. And then we started to notice that there was behaviour towards my husband and our youngest son that was concerning. So we lived at opposite ends of the house for a while. And then there was an incident basically where this dog bit a member of the public. He was on lead. We were in our field. The member of the public was in our field. So there was no need for the dog to have been muzzled at that point, and there was no warning. And basically, the charity made the decision that the dog should be euthanized. And so that was completely the right decision. I can see that with hindsight now. I mean, I'm giving a very high level overview of what happened in the decision making process that went on to get to that decision. So I don't want anyone thinking badly about the charity, because it was the right decision at that time. However, for me in that moment, with the way that my head state was, it wasn't I was leaving my husband, I was going to leave the family, I was going to run away with this dog, we were going to find a flat somewhere and rent it. There was no way that dog was going to be put to sleep. And all of this kind of stuff was going on in my head because I wasn't well. And I didn't realize at the time that I wasn't well. And it was a culmination of all of these sort of dots joining together. So when I got offered the opportunity to come back into the dog world, because I kind of deviated out into the franchise industry and business consultancy to franchisors, I then got the opportunity to purchase the International School for Canine Psychology, which I had known Lisa Tenzin Dolmer, the founder, since before the ISCP was born, because she lives sort of 20, 30 minutes down the road, and we knew each other through a mutual wonderful holistic vet who had done some zoo pharmacognosy for us both, and helped me massively with a rescue dog, but that's a different story. And yes, so I got the opportunity to purchase the International School for Canine Psychology, by which point I'd had a couple of years where I'd been able to step back and just get myself, reflect, and just work on myself. And when I was offered the chance to become the principal of the ISCP, it was just the right time to step back up and step in and be where I needed to be in the dog space.
That's really wonderful. It sounds very serendipitous, almost like life prepared you for that moment. What changed after that for you? Because it's still a business, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. What changed? So I think the main thing that changed is that I really felt that I was home and I was back where I needed to be. We've got 3 at the moment. We did have 4 until 2 weeks ago when we had to say goodbye to Chip, the border collie, fortunately. But yeah, we've got 3 currently.
I'm so sorry for your loss. That's hard. I just came from visiting a friend who's in the process of deciding when the right time is for her doggy. She's a cockapoo, but she is like 15, nearly 15 years old. It's such a difficult choice to make, isn't it? It might be too soon, but just out of curiosity, how did you know?
My goodness. So if there's one message for anyone listening that I would want them to leave with, it is to trust your gut and get a second opinion always. So the vets that we were with, I kept saying there's something not right with her. She's drinking too much. There's something not right. And then on Saturday or Sunday, it was the weekend afternoon, she was led on the chair next to me and her breath rate was really elevated. So I took my phone out and videoed and counted the breath rate, and it was ridiculously high. So I rang the vets. I said, I need to bring her in. So I took her in and she walked in and they said, oh, she's fine. She seems very sprightly. There's nothing wrong with her. And I showed them the video and said, this isn't right. She's not right. Oh, well, we'll give her some Metacam, because if she was panting, that if she's panting, it's either stress or pain. So we'll give her some Metacam and then book you in on Tuesday for a follow-up appointment. So my husband took her on the Tuesday. So 2 different vets that she'd seen, and said she was fine, nothing to worry about. And so I kept watching her and was not happy at all. And she started to go off her food over the next few days. And I thought maybe it was something to do with her teeth. Maybe there was some pain. So I went back to the vets and I said, I want blood tests, I want urine tests. And they're like, no, there's no need. She's fine. I'm like, I want to give you my money. Please, can you run these tests? And they're like, no, she's fine. I said, well, could we at least book her in for a dental then? Could she maybe just have a full check, make sure there's no decay, make sure there's nothing going on? Okay, but that will be next month. We haven't got availability until middle of next month. So I said, okay, fine. I went literally in the vet's car park, rang the vets, which is maybe 10-minute, 15-minute drive, and said, this is what I'm seeing. This is where I'm at. Can you help? Is there anything you can do? I'd really value a second opinion. Within 36 hours, they'd got blood and urine sample tests results. Within 2 hours, they decided she had a heart murmur, so she should never have had the Metacam that the other vets had prescribed. But within 36 hours, they had the blood and urine sample results, and she had diabetes so far gone that they thought that we'd lose her that weekend. This was on the Thursday. They thought we'd lose her that weekend. So, although it is really crap and upsetting, we only had her for 18 months. She was a working sheepdog before she came to us. She was working the sheep in the hills in Yorkshire. She'd had a really, really hard life. When she came to us, we were told she was reactive. She'd go for other dogs, she'd go for humans, and she was a really damaged soul when she first arrived. And when I mean, she never quite grasped personal space. Once she trusted you, she was here like, but she just loved to be loved. Once she decided that we were all right, she was just a joy, and it was so wonderful to see her rehabilitation journey. And although it is absolutely rubbish, I won't not get upset that she's not with us anymore. I know that we did right by her the whole way through. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and you advocated for her, which is absolutely huge.
100%. And vets are fantastic. They have got so much knowledge and they've studied so hard, and there is so much pressure on our veterinary industry as a whole, whether that's vets, vet nurses, everyone in the veterinary industry, even receptionists are under so much pressure and judgment all the time. But they're human and they can't know everything, and they have a certain amount of experiences and specialities from the cases that they've seen and the studies that they've done. So I don't feel that we can blame vets individually or collectively, but we're with our dogs they might see them for 20 minutes in an unnatural environment once in a blue moon. We're with our dogs all day, every day, and it's us that knows what's normal for those individual dogs. So we have to advocate for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This was Chip. I'm sorry for your loss. That's really tough. And also, that was quite recent as well. Um, have you noticed whether the other dogs have noticed that he's no longer around? She, sorry.
No, it's okay. We don't actually know if Chip was her name, because on the paperwork that came with her, it said Chip A and Chip B. So we don't know whether she was just microchip A and there was a microchip B. I don't know. But we don't know. We were told her name was Chip. So Dude and Willow, they've always been a team. They're like an old married couple, although we do make sure that they do lots of stuff independently. So they're not kind of worried when one isn't around. But they've always been a team, whereas Charlie and Chip were a team. Charlie's a little Jack Russell cross, and Charlie has definitely displayed behaviour. Hello. Definitely displayed behaviour that would indicate that he is struggling a bit internally. So things like my husband's slipper randomly will appear down the driveway or something, or he buried a pair of my socks in the garden the other day. Just random things that we would have seen when we first got him and behavior that he would have displayed back then. He's just sort of regressed and is displaying that behavior again now, which may be seen, if you didn't know better, as naughty behavior, bad behavior, to mischief, all that kind of stuff. But I know my dogs, and I know that it's because he's struggling with Chip's loss.
Hi, I'm Nadine, host of Just a Dog podcast. Just a quick one. Thank you for being here. Out of every podcast in the world, you chose to spend this time here with me and with Duna and with Joe Middleton, and I don't take that for granted at all. If you haven't already yet, though, please subscribe because it really does help a small show like this keep going and reach the right people. And of course, you can find us also on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, TikTok, Substack, all the channels. Anyways, I'll let you go back to your listening now. Enjoy. Looking at all three businesses at the moment, so you've got the ISCP, you've got Canine Principles, and then you've got IICE.
National Institute for Canine Ethics, yeah.
That's it. How are they interconnected, firstly? And what is the belief that underpins all three businesses and keeps you moving forward?
So, the International Institute for Canine Ethics is a membership organisation for ethical dog professionals. So, anyone who comes into contact with dogs as part of their daily role, we want to be practicing consent based handling. We want them to be able to understand dog body language. We want them to commit to the code of conduct that the International Institute for Canine Ethics promotes to ensure that dogs are surrounded by an ecosystem of professionals who genuinely have their best interests at heart from the dog's perspective. So, safety first, for example, making sure that they're able to trust the humans around them rather than feeling that they're being pressured or forced into compliance. They all gel together and they've all got different roles, but the underpinning thread is that everything is done from a dog centric, science backed approach rather than just guessing that this might be nice.
I was reading that you've had about 20,000 plus students enrolled in Canine Principles. What does that tell us about a shift in the industry?
That's a really great question. So the 20,000 figure comes from the platform. We've got analytics on the learning management system platform that we use, and we can see data tracking in the back end and we can see trends in the industry, which is really interesting. There seems to have been a push towards the more positive change at a governmental level over the last few years that I haven't seen over the last 25 years, which is incredible. So things like greyhound racing being banned in Wales and Scotland, just by going out in the big wide world, you see a lot more dogs wearing harnesses than you would have done all those years ago. So it's really interesting to see. And we can see that through our sign-ups on the platform, our loose lead walking course, for example, has over the last couple of years a much greater influx of sign-ups. But I can't rely on the data on the platform because lots of things have changed and we're always moving. We're always taking risks in what we're doing and trying to explore and test and measure new things because we want collectively as an organization across all of my organizations, we're a team of about 23 altogether. We're all underpinned by those values of being super passionate about making education be the key to positive change in a world where dogs are suppressed, they're captives, they're treated as if their emotions don't matter and they're a secondary sort of pain in the backside. Sometimes they're a secondary being, which is not the case. So I can't count on the data being accurate as an industry overview because of the changes that we make in what we're doing. But if I was going to say as a gut feeling, we're moving in the right direction.
Amazing. What are some of the most popular courses? What is that telling us? And also, is that like from a dog guardian perspective? Are they dog guardians enrolling, or is it more professionals?
We have a mix with Canine Principles, whereas with the ISCP, it's more dog professionals. And with Canine Principles, we've got a mix. We've got some people that join because as a dog border in the UK, you have to have your qualifications to get your license. So we have some people that just join to do those qualifications, and we have others that may start with those qualifications and go all the way through to their level 6 in advanced canine behaviour with Canine Principles. Whereas with the ISCP, it's very much specifically people who want to work with dogs at a higher level. So they might do the level 4 dog training certificate, and then that might be where they want to stop. And then you've got the ones that want to go on to do their level 5 and their level 6 and become a clinical animal behaviourist through the International Institute for Canine Ethics ABTC pathway. So many acronyms in the dog world.
So From your perspective, not just as a business owner, but also an insider within the system, what does it take to change an industry, especially an unregulated industry?
So the ABTC, the Animal Behaviour Training Council, is the nearest that we've got to a regulating body in the UK, and they have just got UCAS approval, which is massive, and that's kind of the industry standard. The International Institute for Canine Ethics is a practitioner organisation and an awarding organisation for the ABTC. So as a dog professional, to push people to look at the ABTC register and the International Institute for Canine Ethics Ethical Canine Professional Register, to choose the professionals that they're going to have involved in their dogs' lives and have that layer of approval, that third party validation from industry experts who prioritize that dog centric approach and the evidence based, science backed methodology, means that we are going to be raising the bar and we're going to be raising the standards across the globe because we are international with those organizations. So if you were doing your level 5 and you wanted to become registered on the ABTC register, you're not able to just go to the ABTC and say, I want to join your register. You have to go through an awarding organisation. So you need to join an organisation like the International Institute for Canine Ethics, who will then assess you to enable you to become recognised on the ABTC register. Because that's such a mouthful, like you say, and such a quite confusing process, we've actually put a mini course together, a little bite-sized mini course to walk people through that process, which you can get on the International Institute for Canine Ethics website. So it's canineethics.org, and under resources, there are some free resources. And one of those is that free bite-sized mini course, because literally while I'm even talking to you about it, I feel like I need to take notes.
What's really interesting is that you've made this your life's work, and I think it's just an incredible, I guess, legacy to build on.
I don't know about legacy. What I do know is that when you work in rescue and people say, like, I couldn't do what you've done, I couldn't, and I look at what other people are doing, and I think I haven't done anything compared to what other people are doing, and the way that they've devoted their lives to rescuing dogs, pulling dogs out of pounds, transport all over the country. And it, all I can do is what I've try my hardest to advocate for the dogs and the situations that I've seen. And I do believe that the key to positive change is education. So I don't know about legacy, but I do know that this is where I'm meant to be and this is what I'm meant to be doing.
Well, you're reaching a lot of people by doing what you're doing and elevating the overall standard at the same time. I find it so interesting how some days I have conversations like with you or with other professionals in the industry. And I feel so hopeful and I feel like, yes, we're all kind of like moving in one direction. And then sometimes I can go on Facebook. It will be like in the face where it's just like the polar opposite of what's creating that momentum is still in existence. Just thinking about things like aversives, like, shock collars are still available for purchase in the UK, which is just so mind-boggling to me. So I'm curious to learn what you believe needs to be true to phase those things out.
Yes, there is still a lot of stuff that goes on that needs to change. And although I'm here talking to you and saying that things are moving in the most positive direction that I've ever seen in my lifetime, which 100% they are, I could also tell you about the rescue that I visited last week, where a dog had had its ears chopped off with scissors and its tail bitten off. So that goes on. And I'm not saying that the world is rosy and everything's fabulous, but I think where we choose to make a difference and how we do that isn't by scaring people to sticking their heads in the sand because they can't cope with it. And why should you go on Facebook? And for example, a few years ago, I went through and unfollowed and complained and whatever about loads of stuff on my Facebook feed, because every time I was going on Facebook, I was seeing dogs being skinned alive. And I know that goes on. I don't need to see it in front of me on Facebook every day. I'm one person. And I'm trying to make a difference in the best way that I possibly can with the knowledge and the experience that I've got, while striving to learn more at the same time. Like, I'm doing a master's in education at the moment, and I'm signed up to God knows how many courses, and I've got God knows how many books to read as well. But we never stop learning. So all we can do as individuals is do our utmost best to advocate for these dogs when we know there's all that horrible stuff going on. And we as an individual have to decide how much capacity we're able to have in our bandwidths to be able to do the best we can. Because I have gone pop 3 times, I think now, over the last however many years, and that serves no one. When you have good people having to step back from rescue and step back from advocating for dogs in need because they've burnt themselves out, because they've got compassion fatigue, whatever the circumstances are. And in fact, I launched a mental health support for dog rescue workers course specifically because of that, through the ISCP, with the first ever the Pause mental health support worker specifically for dog rescue workers, because there's no good knowing what to do with a mental health first aid crisis if it's not specifically applied to the situations that you only see in rescue. And so that course is live now, and there's discounts for rescues. I know I'm completely plugging it, but it is so needed, and it's
This is welcome. I know that you worked with Tara on that as well,
yeah.
and Tara was
Yeah.
one of my first she was my first guest, actually.
Amazing. Yes, so Tara and I've created a pathway where people can start with the ISCP level 3 Pause mental health first aid for dog rescue workers course, and then move on to her toolkit, her emotional toolkit, to implement the course and have hybrid support from Tara personally. Tara is an amazing, amazing psychologist doing great things, and collabing with her on this has been an absolute joy. So I think, in answer to your original question, to have that change and to make that change, it's about making sure that you're protecting yourself and your energy whilst doing what you can and not burning yourself out and struggling with compassion fatigue, but whilst also trying to make a difference at a higher level, which is why I do go to the parliamentary meetings and speak when I can, because I feel it's so important that we're shouting about things at the rooftops. As horrible as it sounds, the dogs are the symptoms. These dogs that are being put to sleep day in, day out, because there's simply nowhere for them to go, are the symptoms of a really broken and screwed up systems.
Yeah.
As far as I can see, the best thing that we can do is do what we can with the bandwidth we've got to support those dogs, whilst also shouting about this at a parliamentary level and making that change.
100%. But then that's it from a systematic perspective. So rescue has its own challenges, and then the kind of training and behavior world has its own challenges. What can regular guardians do?
I don't think there's ever such a thing as a regular dog guardian. I think that dogs are educating us all of the time. Each individual dog teaches us, and we need to respect their individuality. And by respecting that individuality and observing them and listening to them, we're able to learn so much. So I think, if you're listening to this and you are not a dog professional, but you have dogs in your life, I'd say co-regulate with them, just be with them, observe them, take videos and then slow them down and geek out on, are they weight bearing more one side to the other? Is one muscle slightly larger than the other? Are there any changes in their coat pattern compared to the video I took last week or the picture I took last week? Do they tilt their head to one side sometimes? Do they shake their head? When they're going for a poo, I'm totally quoting Hannah Capon, I think it was, at the emotional wellbeing conference I went to, that look at their body shape and how they're curving their back. Is that consistent? And just so many different things. Just really geek out on your own dogs. They're teaching you all the time.
Having Duna has really opened my eyes.
Yeah.
Just noticing all these things because she had an issue with her gait, which I noticed a few weeks after having her, and it's taken me months to get to this point. Just recently, she was diagnosed with lumbar sacral disease.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so nobody picked up on it. Between me noticing and getting a diagnosis, at least 9 months passed. That's a
wow.
long time in pain. So I would agree with you, observing your dog, like the power of noticing,
Yeah.
power of observation is, yeah,
It
very
really is.
powerful.
And I feel like that it is a long time in pain there, but a lot of people will see the symptoms of resource guarding, or they're just so grumpy. Or when Willow first arrived, we had a few sofas that exploded when she was left home alone, that increased destruction or chewing and things like that. But once you know what's normal, baseline normal for that dog as an individual, it's so much easier to pick up on things that aren't normal. And I was saying to someone, I can't, it might even have been you, I can't remember, but I was saying to someone earlier about how I've got some wonderful people near me that I'll get to put second eyes on a dog, second eyes, third eyes, fourth eyes. I think it's great to have other people's eyes on your dog sometimes as well, whether that's on videos, whether that's in person. So I've got a few trusted people locally, and if I'm not sure about something, I'll get them to have a look as well. And I guess it's a bit like if you've got a child and people haven't seen your child for ages and they go, "Oh, haven't they grown?" And you look at them and think, because you see them every day, it's just normal.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good idea to get those second, third eyes and never be too proud to learn or get that second opinion, because other people will see things that you maybe have missed.
Yeah, I tend to do that in the park. I can see when there's a slight, like something looks a bit abnormal. I think it's probably from speaking to people and just like being quite an observant person. I'm like, did you notice that bunny hop? Did you notice that there's a bit of a skip there?
Yeah, that little kick out with that hind leg, I saw that.
Exactly. I'm just like, I'm so like, because of the experience with Duda, I'm like, please, I don't want any dogs to be in pain. Like, it's awful because they hide it so well.
Yeah,
Do you have a few extra minutes for a quick fire session?
yeah, of course.
Amazing. Okay.
I could talk for ages about it as well because I'm so passionate about what we do.
Jamar, I'm just going to give you a couple of questions. Well, not more than a couple, but whatever comes to mind. No right or wrong answer.
Hold on, let me get ready. Right.
So, what is the first dog that you remember clearly, and what did they teach you without trying?
Oh, Patul, Old English Sheepdog, how to get a stick through a doorway.
What is one everyday behavior in dogs that humans consistently misunderstand?
Being calm or appearing to be settled does not mean that the dog is happy.
What is a belief about dogs that you once held that you no longer agree with?
Many years ago, I used to think that a waggy tail meant a happy dog.
What do you notice first about a dog when you meet them?
Probably their hind muscle tone.
Okay, geeking out over there. What's the best book that you've read that changed how you think about dogs?
Linda Michaels' Do No Harm Dog Training was one of the later ones. I don't know what the first one was. Oh, maybe a Mark Beckoff one. I don't know. I've got so many, honestly, on my bookshelf behind here.
What is a compelling reason why people should adopt and not buy?
A compelling reason would be that they are helping a dog to have a forever home that and get it out of kennels. So a dog that's been through trauma, lost everything that it ever knew, and ended up in a rescue environment. They would be helping that dog to find a new home whilst making a donation to the rescue to enable them to help more dogs.
To continue their work, okay. If you had a magic wand to change one thing about the dog world instantly, what would it be?
So many. What would it be? I think the one thing that I would change would be that before you were allowed to breed, you had to work for 3 weeks in a rescue. I'm not anti-breeding. I don't want people to think I'm anti-breeding because that's not the case at all. I'm anti-unethical breeding.
Who should I speak to next and why?
Karen Pienaar, because she is a wonderful human doing fabulous things in your home country.
Joe, you've been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Joe.